Humans were forbidden from touching the gates, so of course she kicked one open. The maze of stars stretched across the void like a glittering puzzle box, every constellation linked by glowing paths that folded upon themselves in ways no alien intellect could fully comprehend. The Stargate Guardians, towering, crystal-born beings older than most civilizations, had slammed their celestial doors closed, convinced that Earth was too reckless to ever understand their realm. They expected obedience. Instead they faced her. Her name was Lyra, a girl from Earth whose classmates once mocked her as a daydreamer for staring at the sky longer than any telescope operator ever did. Now, surrounded by figures with bodies that split light into rainbows, she stood in the core of their forbidden kingdom. "You should not be here," one guardian intoned, its voice like glass chimes tumbling downstairs. "Your kind is reckless. You will shatter the order of the stars." Lyra tilted her head, hands on her hips, gazing at the massive door of interlocking shards of dark energy. Throbbed like a heartbeat sealed tight. "Maybe," she replied. "But I'm also really good at mazes." The guardians bristled, their translucent frames vibrating in harmonic chords of doubt. Across the hall, alien scholars from dozens of worlds looked on silently. They had each tried and failed to map the labyrinth beyond the locked gates. The path was said to shift endlessly, barrier meant to deny those deemed unworthy. Entire fleets had been lost in spirals, yet here stood a human girl, ponytail bouncing, sneakers squeaking on star-forged floors, daring to grin at the challenge. The door shimmered, faint glyphs glowing around its arch. Lyra pressed her palm against them, ignoring the horrified gasps around her. The pattern shifted, like water under her hand, aligning with constellations she recalled from her childhood stargazing. Orion, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major. She whispered their names as though greeting old friends, and the gate quivered. One guardian boomed, "Cease this meddling. The labyrinth devours all who enter. You risk everything." But the locks yielded, cosmic tumblers turning with thunder that rippled across galaxies. The doors cracked wide enough for a ray of radiant light to spill, bathing Lyra's face. She squinted, her smile widening. "Looks like it's working." The labyrinth sprawled out beyond the threshold, an endless network of glowing bridges stretched into darkness. Path reached toward another cluster of stars. Every junction spun into 10 more possibilities. The guardians insisted it was unsolvable, yet Lyra's mind thrummed, like when she used to finish puzzles upside down just to make them harder. She stepped inside without pause. The crowd erupted, some rushing to pull her back, others insisting she be left to vanish like the rest. The guardians shouted threats, but the gate no longer listened, pulsed with human touch. Lyra walked deeper, shoes tapping against transparent floors, showing galaxies swirling beneath. Hummed tune under her breath, the same silly melody she once used to track numbers in math class. Each note seemed to make a path shift, reducing infinite choices into one correct step after another. To her it wasn't chaos, it was a song. Behind her, several alien onlookers hesitated, then followed. They murmured about impossibility unraveling, about forbidden doors bending to human instinct. The guardians cried out, their voices cracking like storms on glass. But none turned back. The deeper she went, the more the labyrinth yielded. Floating riddles hovered over bridges, requiring not logic alone but memory of Earth's constellations. She solved them with ease, recalling camping nights when she traced star shapes with a flashlight, while cousins laughed. The labyrinth demanded wit, patience, and imagination. Lyra had all three sharpened by years of being underestimated. Hours passed in alien reckoning though. Only minutes to her rhythm. She swung around curves, sprinted across breaking platforms, and leapt through rings of light that snapped shut behind her. The labyrinth now sang back, harmonizing with her presence. "This cannot be," one alien muttered, trailing close. "The Guardians designed this to reject intruders." Another shook his head. "Maybe it's not about design. Maybe it's about perspective." Lyra halted in a vast chamber where thousands of paths converged on a single colossal star suspended at the center. The Guardians reappeared, crystalline bodies forming from refracted beams. They blocked the way, radiating judgment. "Human," they spoke in layered tones. "This path ends here. Beyond lies the power to redirect galaxies. You cannot claim it." Lyra crossed her arms, tilting her head, as if humoring a strict teacher. "I didn't come to claim anything. Only wanted to see if your puzzle was truly unsolvable." The Guardians trembled. "And if you do," she smiled, "then I'll show you that you don't need to guard the gates so harshly. Maybe you just need someone who sees the sky differently." They bristled again, but the star pulsed, waves of approval rippling through the It recognized her intent. The Guardians, bound by its will, had no choice but to part. Lyra approached, raised her hand, and touched the glowing surface. Once the labyrinth shifted, paths realigned, stars brightened, and a doorway appeared none had ever seen. She turned to the crowd, hair glowing with starlight, grinning like a child who had solved the world's hardest riddle. "Come on," she called. "Let's see what's waiting beyond." The star's doorway rippled like liquid glass, revealing a corridor of shifting light that stretched farther than Lyra could imagine. Behind her, the labyrinth reformed, sealing the way back and leaving only the road ahead aglow. Aliens at the threshold wavered, their voices trembling with awe and dread. Some wanted to flee, others whispered that history was changing before their Lyra, however, only tightened her shoelaces, shoved her hands in her pockets, and stepped forward, and strode forward as though she were heading into a weekend mall trip. "Seriously," she muttered, "this is way easier than high school geometry." The corridor pulsed with life. Constellations shimmered across the walls like living murals, shifting between familiar and alien star charts. Some showed the tales of civilizations long gone. Others replayed battles once fought in forgotten corners of space. At one bend, the walls revealed Earth itself, continents glowing in their recognizable outlines. Lyra stopped, running a finger along the bright edge of North America, her chest tightening with pride and awe. Gasps rose from the aliens behind her. None had ever seen their worlds mirrored in the labyrinth. It was as though the maze recognized her humanity and reshaped itself around it. The keepers, still trailing at a distance, quivered with barely restrained rage. Their united voices rang out, "You trespass upon powers even we cannot command. Turn back before the labyrinth binds to you forever." Lyra smirked over her shoulder. "Maybe that's the point. You don't own the stars. No one does." The corridor widened into a massive chamber where 10 bridges jutted across a void of swirling nebula. She ended at a gate, every gate glowing differently, some with flame, some with water, some with void so deep it bent the eye. Onlookers whispered nervously, unsure which way was safe. The keepers stayed silent. Lyra tapped her chin and began to hum, her tune echoing like pebbles skipping over a pond. Slowly the bridges responded, glowing brighter in rhythm. With her melody, one by one 9 of them dissolved into mist, leaving only a single shining span. Well, that was easy, she said. Guess I'll take that one. She crossed, ignoring the cries of alarm. Behind her, the bridge stretched farther than expected, carrying her over a nebula so vast she watched stars being born and dying within its clouds. Thunder rolled beneath her as stellar winds whipped across, but she pressed. Some aliens dared to follow while most remained at the edge. Halfway across, statues rose from the void, towering forms of ancient champions from countless races. Each stood armed, eyes faintly glowing. At first unmoving, they ignited when Lyra reached the bridge's center, stepping forward as if live. The keepers' voices thundered. The guardians awaken. This is your final trial. Lyra rolled her eyes. Of course, it is. The statues advanced, each embodying a different warrior race. Reptilian claws, avian wings, insectoid armor, weapons raised, they closed in along the narrow inn. The audience held their breath. But Lyra drew no weapon. Instead she sank slightly at the knees, studying their rhythm. Her dad once made her take a summer defense class, and though she wasn't a fighter, she remembered the first rule: do the unexpected. So she clapped. Sharp, steady beats rang out. Clap, clap, clap. She stomped her sneaker in time, blending her earlier melody into a makeshift rhythm game. To the crowd's astonishment, the statues faltered. Their steps slowed, sinking unwillingly. With her beat, Lyra grinned and sped the tempo. The guardians stumbled, collided, and froze mid-stride, their eyes fading. With one last clap, their glow winked. The audience erupted. She defeated them with sound, one alien cried. The keepers shook with fury, their crystalline bodies splintering into shards. This is blasphemy, they thundered. The labyrinth was never meant to be mocked. Lyra passed the fallen titans waving behind her. Or maybe it just needed a new angle. So warriors. I saw a dance floor. The glowing bridge carried her to the final gate, taller than a skyscraper, throbbing with a heartbeat strong enough to shake the void. Its surface rippled with visions, armies clashing, galaxies bending, civilizations rising and collapsing. The keepers materialized once more, barring her way. You have come too far. Beyond lies the heart of the labyrinth, a force that dictates wars and fates. You are human, reckless, unfit. Lyra crossed her arms, feet planted, chin raised. You keep calling me unworthy, but the labyrinth keeps opening for me. Maybe it's you it no longer trusts. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. For the first time in ages, doubt struck the keeper's authority like a meteor. Their crystalline frames splintered into jagged edges. The gate behind them pulsed, eager for Lyra. She pressed her palm against its surface. The chamber quaked, the nebula roaring. The gate cracked, blinding light spilling through. Symbols shifted, not into constellations but into a sprawling map. An interstellar web linking stars. Fleets, battlefronts, entire empires on the verge of war. Lyra's breath caught. The labyrinth wasn't just a puzzle. Was a weapon. The keepers lunged, desperate, but the gate blasted a shockwave that hurled them back. Lyra skidded on glowing floor but held firm. She glanced at the aliens watching, their faces split between dread and hope. Looks like the stars have been keeping a secret, she said. And I think Earth just uncovered it. The gate shuddered beneath her palm. Light surged like molten rivers through the chamber, cascading across the void. The labyrinth of stars convulsed. rearranging itself on a cosmic scale. Paths stretched, snapped, and reformed into a brilliant network that rippled to the galaxy's very edge. The onlookers shielded their eyes, many dropping to their knees as though witnessing creation itself. The keepers struggled against the flood of energy, but their crystalline bodies fractured, splintering into shards of radiant dust. Lyra kept her hand steady on the gate, unyielding, even as her pulse raced and her frame trembled with fatigue. "If this thing is a weapon," she whispered under her breath, "then maybe it's time it was used for something beyond greed." Gates' visions sharpened. Armadas assembling across galaxies, alien realms preparing for certain wars, and endless worlds shivering beneath the loom of destruction. The keepers had buried this maze to steer destinies, choosing which empires thrived and which crumbled, binding the stars into their contest of rule. But now that grip was splintering. Lyra sensed the labyrinth sinking with her, each radiant path bending toward her intent. Silently asked her where the galaxy should go. She closed her eyes, thought of Earth, thought of cousins laughing under night skies, thought of humanity's chaotic but unyielding drive to wander, to fix, to hope. Opening her eyes, she answered with a single word: together. Maze. Throb. Pathways flared alive, doors unlocking across countless systems. Fleets once pointed as enemies now found routes that joined them, chances to speak instead of clash. The brutal loops the keepers engineered unraveled. War games dissolved into something less controllable. The keepers screamed, their tones tearing into fractured darts. But the labyrinth expelled them. Their shapes broke entirely, scattering into glistening fragments that drifted into the nebula like fading sparks. Silence blanketed the hall. Alien onlookers fixed on Lyra, struggling to accept that a human girl had undone what their rulers clutched for ages. Staggered back from the gate, sneakers squeaking against the glowing floor, sweat sliding down her cheek. Still she smiled through the weariness. Guess the cosmos just needed a new pair of eyes. The gate steadied, its glow smoothing into calm radiance. Paths stretched out, showing safe trails to distant suns. Maze was no longer a trap of cruel options. It was a map for all. One alien, with insect-like wings, stepped forth, bowing low. "You have given us freedom. We thought the keepers eternal." Another, scarred by wars, spoke in awe. "You turned their weapon into hope. You are human." Lyra chuckled faintly. "Guilty as charged," the aliens murmured among themselves, some bowing, others just staring wide-eyed. For the first time, countless races saw humanity not as reckless intruders but as problem solvers, code breakers, limit pushers. Lyra hadn't ruled through soldiers or guns. She had solved the labyrinth the way a child solved puzzles in dirt, with a stick and a stubborn grin. Faced the glowing gate once more. So that's no more barred doors, no more impossible paths. The labyrinth hummed, as if replying, its veins shining brighter before settling into balance. Lyra stepped back, hands shoved into her pockets. "Cool. Guess it's time the stars quit playing hide and seek." The corridor behind her opened again, leading back to the first hall. Slowly, aliens streamed through, some dazed, others chuckling nervously, each glancing Lyra like she might vanish. Walked with them, casual, like leaving a classroom after passing a test. Nobody else managed reaching the first hall. They found the gates, once sealed, now wide, spilling star lanes in every direction. Worlds could move freely now. The chokehold of control broken for. But Lyra leaned against the wall, watching as fleets slipped into new pathways, their ships sparking across. Black. One small avian alien came near, holding a shard of crystal left from the shattered keepers. You ended. Do you not fear what you've done? Lyra shook her head. I didn't end them. I just showed everyone they didn't need them anymore. That's the difference. Alien gripped the shard tight, wings rustling as thought sank in, then bowed and withdrew. Lyra gazed out at the glimmering routes, wondering how long before Earth heard of this. Would her people even believe her? A girl in sneakers and a dream had cracked the locks of the universe. She snorted at the thought. Wait until science teachers hear about this. As more aliens rushed into the gates, she realized she was no longer just a guest. She was part of the legend that would carry through ages. The maze of stars was free. Its truth, no longer hoarded by crystal masters, but spread to all who dared walk. The cosmos for the first time was open, and at the heart of it stood a human who saw the stars as riddles, not cages, and solved them with nothing but curiosity, nerve, and belief that doors weren't meant to stay closed. The labyrinth settled, its shine steady and calm. The keepers gone, the stars unlocked. Lyra faced the crowd, her grin wide. Oh, who's ready for a road